I'm Brian Carpenter, host of Fresh Air at 5, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast, where each week we talk about a free piece or two of technology that you can use in your classroom. I'm your host, Shannon Martin. I'm a middle school teacher, technology and instructional coach for my district.
And I'm our producer and husband, Fuzz Martin, and I'm hoping that we can wow you on this podcast as it is our sesquicentennial episode.
Wow. Look at you.
Look, see, I got you to wow. It worked. It worked. 150.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for a long time.
Season 5, episode 150.
Sitting at our kitchen table, and
then we moved to the basement.
And
now we're at your office.
And I bought a whole bunch of different equipment. I've got a studio, 2 studios.
Yeah. I mean, you also have your own podcast.
I do. But look at us in our fancy gear.
We're so fun.
This is so fun.
It's so ridiculous.
Here we go. Well, welcome.
It's episode 150.
Yeah.
It's super fun. Thanks for listening to all of you that have been listening. And for anybody who's been listening the whole time, thank you. More power to you.
Yeah,
and also our new listeners, like my students that have discovered my podcast.
Yeah.
Hello,
I know
graders.
one of your teaching partners at your school has also told her students about your show.
And they've been using my Tech Tools EdTech Directory.
Yeah.
So on my website, my students have been using that for another class, which is kind of fun.
That is fun.
They're using Tech Tools. So free Tech Tools. We love a free Tech Tool.
Woo-hoo.
So we are at episode 150, and I was thinking I talk about all kinds of free Tech Tools. I talk about apps. I talk about Chrome extensions. I talk about websites. I talk about all kinds of stuff. But rarely do I talk about other podcasts.
Yeah.
And podcasts are a form of free resources, free technology for teachers.
Right. Oh, this is like Inception here.
Yeah.
It's like podception. Like you could put your own podcast into your EdTech directory since this is a free tool for teachers.
What?
Whoa, we're in a loop. Feedback loop. Whoa.
Oh my goodness. So I am a part of the Education Podcast Network, which is a bunch of awesome websites for educators. And there's all kinds of different topics and things like that.
Probably like 25 different podcasts.
Yeah. So if you're looking for teacher-specific podcasts, check out the Education Podcast Network because there's just lots and lots of resources. So besides free tech tools, there's also just different ways of, life as teachers, which is great. But today what I want to focus on is podcasts for kids. I feel like this is kind of a tool that doesn't get used in the classroom just because people don't know. Mm-hmm. And there's so many cool resources that you can have your students listening to in class or have them as part of projects or have them at home and come back and share information. And there's so many out there. I'm only going to highlight 2 today just because I think they're fun and cool in ways just to get you started if you're interested in having students listen to podcasts. But I know a lot of times we have kids listening to audiobooks in the classroom now. And sometimes we have them listening to or watching videos and things like that. Podcasts for students are another way of getting resources to kids, giving them ideas, teaching them skills, and making all kinds of connections. So along with your fun little wow intro,
you should have seen the arm motions there.
There was arm motions.
I think I was being mocked.
The first podcast I'm going to highlight that is fantastic for students is called Wow in the World. And this podcast is taking STEM concepts, so science, technology, engineering, math, and innovation is the other piece that they add into it. And they give you a concept, they teach you about it, but it's in a story format. Mm-hmm. And what's really cool is the podcast hosts are very entertaining. There's sound effects, there's music, there's a lot to it. It's not just 2 people talking. and they're super duper engaging for kids. The podcast is put on by Tinkercast, so you have to go to tinkercast.com and then find the shows. Or if you just Google Wow in the World podcast, you will find it.
Pop right up.
It'll be very easy.
You'll be like, wow, that was fast.
Man, this is just going today. So if you're looking for something to build into your science class or just get students engaged in their learning, they have each episode will tell you a little bit, like a couple sentences about what it's going to be. But what I appreciate is that while they cover like DNA, they cover all kinds of cool things. When you're in their podcast website, so you can find them on Apple and Spotify and all the other places you can find them. But on the left-hand side of their site, you can choose. So are you looking for podcasts that are for elementary students, like 2nd to 4th grade, 3rd to 5th grade, elementary, kindergarten to 2nd, middle school, or preschool? So you can already sort their podcasts out for age-appropriate listening, which is huge because you don't want to just put your kids on something and think that maybe they can listen to it, maybe they can't. And they have, like I said, preschool specific. Like if you want to listen to it as a whole class, maybe you're having just some quiet time and you want to listen to it with your students. They also will organize it by standard. So if you want to cover information on your Earth and space science standards, engineering and technology, life science, next-gen science standards, physical science, they have it broken down by standard, which is awesome. So if you're covering a specific standard in class, you want kids to learn, they'll give you some ideas, some hands-on things they can build and create with it. And then you can sort obviously through all of their results. They have over 600 different podcasts that you can listen to, which is awesome. And there's different results that you can pull up if you search that way, and different shows that go along with the different science listening as well. So Wow in the World connects you to all kinds of resources to build scientific concepts by listening to these cool stories that build in science and make kids connections, and they're super interesting. So if you get a chance with your students or even just yourself to kind of understand what these cool podcasts with student focus or kid focus is, they're really engaging and fun to check out. So Wow in the World is my first recommendation if you get a chance to do that. Science. And you don't have to do it in science class either. Like you can use them anywhere, but
yeah,
they're awesome. The second, what do you got?
No, I was just going to say I've listened to part of an episode.
Yeah.
And they seem very fun and engaging for students. Like they're informative and bubbly and really like keep your interest. I thought they're
like you'd want
great.
to sit and listen to them. Like kids will want to sit and listen, not
like
just
I can see us
I'm being assigned this thing
instead of listening to Kids Bop in the car heading up to your parents' house.
Yeah.
Turning this on for our youngest and being able to choose the age level that we want to listen to is kind of cool. So
yeah, you can pick in like things that will be appropriate and concepts that they're interested in.
Yes, and then she can tell us about DNA sculptures.
Right, she'll teach us some more about such things.
So Tinkercast's Wow in the World is a great podcast. So check it out.
Check it out. The second podcast for kids that we have is called Book Club for Kids.
Okay.
And it's a free podcast. And what the whole concept is, it's middle grade students talking about their books that they are reading.
Nice.
So it's fantastic. It gives you book recommendations. So if you're looking for books that our students are engaged in, or you want to what do I need to buy for my library? This is a giant list of great books that kids are engaged in. The second thing is, they have, besides their book recommendations that they love, the students are leading the discussion. So if you want to model what book talks look like in your classroom, and you want your kids, because it's a skill to teach kids how to talk to each other about books, having kind of academic conversations.
Yeah, certainly.
And so what's really cool is there's always, background information and things like that. The adults chime in and sometimes the authors chime in, but the students are really saying hey, this is my favorite book. This is why I love this book. Here are the reasons why I love this book. And they go through and they explain it and they talk about why they like the books that they have. And they will tell you who the author is. They go through each episode They give you the information, the conversation with the writer sometimes they're able to have. But it's a great way to show students and model how to have a book talk and how to talk about the content they're reading and respecting others when they have differing opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a really neat podcast that has kids talking about the books that they love to talk about. And they're all very relevant. So from Red Queen to The Poet X to The Crossover to Tuck Everlasting to The Bad Guys to Tangerine, like all of these books are, some of them have been around for a while, some of them are brand new, and the kids they talk about these books and what makes them engaging. So Book Club for Kids, it's awesome. The website itself also has, besides you can listen to it on their website, but there's an episode organization for you. There's reading tips, how to get everybody engaged, how to make connections, things like that, curriculum, and then there's resources for librarians and teachers and parents. So there's resources and there's curriculum that goes with each book. So if you're interested in the book like The Crossover, it will then give you a story synopsis. It'll give you listening comprehension questions, classroom discussion questions, vocabulary to focus on, listening guide. So all of this goes along with each book that they talk about, which is a great way to help you lead the discussion with your students. But also if you are able to maybe have your own book club or in your students in classroom and you need discussion questions, like these are just ways to get you started and resources to help you out, which is fantastic. And that's all on the website as well. And all of it's free to you. Just click on it and it'll give you the curriculum that helps you align your book with what you need. So Book Club for Kids, it's awesome. It's an awesome resource for modeling book talks and for having student discussion, what it looks like to have students discuss their books.
That's pretty fantastic.
A good book.
Yeah. And if you have some readers that you think would be good on the show too, they accept your students. They've got a place where you can essentially apply to have your students be a part of the panel to talk about it.
Which is really cool. Like they're now accepting applications for 2023.
Yep.
And you just click on that and you can reach out to them as well. So
awesome.
What a cool way to get kids engaged in books. And again, it's not the same, just read the book and discuss, but here you can listen to a podcast as a class. You can listen to it and talk about what it looks like. You can listen to their book talks and then have your own. Just all kinds of fun resources. So there's 2 awesome podcasts for students specifically that you can use in your classroom as a great tool to kind of get podcasts built into your classroom and have kids engaged with things that they're listening to.
Yeah. Love it. Love both of them. I mean, because we love podcasting.
We do.
First foremost, we're 150 episodes in.
We are.
If we didn't like it, we
would have quit after 5.
We would have made it 5 episodes deep. Well, this is pretty great. So, Wow in the World and Book Club for Kids.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in. This has been the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast. If you ever have any questions, you can find me on Twitter @SmartNWI. And if you want to get more information on the links to the technology discussed in this episode, you can visit smartnwi.com. If you'd like to support the show, please consider buying me a coffee or two. Visit buymeacoffee.com/smartnwi or visit smartnwi.com and click on that cute little purple coffee cup. Your donations help keep this show going. New episodes each week. Thanks for listening. Go educate and innovate.
The ideas and opinions expressed on this podcast and the Smart NWI website are those of the author, Shanna Martin, and not of her employer. Prior to using any of the technologies discussed on this podcast, please consult with your employer regulations. This podcast offers no guarantee that these tools will work for you as described, but we sure hope they do. And we'll talk to you on episode 151 right here on the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast.